Hello everyone, through here, welcome to today's presentation. So today's presentation is going to look at this very fascinating topic, Agile versus DevOps. These are two topics that can be confusing, especially for beginners, not being sure what is Agile, what is DevOps. So we're going to dive into this today. For the agenda, we're going to look at what exactly Agile is. We're also going to look at what DevOps is. And we're going to ask and answer the question, is this really a match made in heaven, once we understand what each of them stands for? And then, as always, we're going to talk about some possibilities and where to go from here. So very fascinating. A lot of companies are talking about Agile today. A lot of individuals are talking about DevOps. But what does this all mean? So that's what we're going to look at. For the very first one, we're going to look at Agile Development. So imagine you work for an organization or you're part of a team and your goal is to improve. Your goal is to build solutions faster, improve performance, increase efficiency, be able to do that continuously. So do change continuously without breaking down the entire house, improve customer experience, reduce the amount of failures, and actually deliver faster return on investment. This is the challenge that a lot of teams are being tasked with, to build products, but to maintain all these benefits. So Agile is really a new methodology that has come out and is promising to deliver all of these returns to teams that are practicing Agile. Now, before Agile, there was something called the waterfall. That's a whole different topic on its own. But today, Agile is what a lot of teams are looking forward to. So, how does it work? Who are the players for Agile? Looking at the diagram here, there are really two main players when we think about Agile. We have the business and the developers. So the business usually are the stakeholders in general. And then we have the developers who are the teams that are tasked with implementing the requirements from the business. So the business might want a new point of sale. They might want a new interface to a solution that they have. They might want a new CRM system or ERP system, whatever it is the business want to run the business. They come to the development team and ask for that team to implement that solution. In the old days, it could be a hassle for the development team to take a long time to prepare and come back with a solution, and the business is not happy with that. So Agile really promises to reduce that by iterating through the cycles we have here on the screen, which is planning. The first thing with any project you want to do, you might want to do some planning, designing, doing the development, testing that, releasing that product to production or to the business, and getting feedback from the business on how well the product is. And then once that feedback is received, the cycle continues with planning, design, develop, test, release, and continues. But you might say, well, hasn't this been done before? And you'll be right, this has been done before. But the whole idea for Agile and what really is new about Agile, if you ask me, in my opinion, is that Agile seems to cut that cycle down to a very short period. As a matter of fact, usually it's 2 weeks that is recommended. So within a space of 2 weeks, the teams are planning, they're designing, they're building something, they're giving that to the business for feedback within a 2 weeks period. That way, if the business is not happy, they can reiterate, they can pivot, they can stay agile, which is where the name from Agile comes from, right? And 2 weeks seems to be a sweet spot. Some people can do 3 weeks, some can do a month, but you want to keep that cycle short. Typically, people keep that cycle short for within 2 weeks. And the whole idea is, businesses are changing so fast where if the development team is going to deliver something and the business has changed, they can get that feedback very quickly to bring it back into the development team versus waiting for, say, a 1 month or a 2 month project and planning to build a solution only to come to the business and, everything has changed. So Agile is a development methodology that brings the business and the developers together in a cohesive unit to work and deliver solutions to the business. And the emphasis on Agile is really on collaboration. Is how can these two, the business with the requirements, the development team with the capacity to implement, how can these two work together and deliver solutions very quickly? So that's what Agile is. It's really a development methodology, and sprints is a concept. Now, when you go deep into the actual day-to-day of Agile, you would find different methodologies again in that, right? And the two big ones are Scrum and Kanban. And I'm not going to go too much into the details of what the differences are, but they still fall under Agile development. So whether you're doing Scrum or you're doing Kanban, we can still consider that as just doing Agile development. You're bringing the teams together, everybody's on the same team, and you're working to deliver a solution to the business. So just to look at some of the differences here really quick, for Scrum, the difference is, again, you have sprints, which are generally 2 to 4 weeks. So within 2 to 4 weeks, you've gathered your requirements, you've done some work, and you've come back for feedback for the business. Usually that takes a form of a retrospective. All right. And then you have a Scrum Master, and you have each person on the team, right? The developers, the product owners, and the QA, and everybody being all hands on deck. All right. For Scrum, actually, for Kanban, there is no fixed length of a sprint. All right. So whereas for Scrum, there is 2 to 4 weeks for a sprint, Kanban doesn't believe in that fixed length, right? And I'll talk about Kanban here in a little bit, where it believes more in something called the velocity, and there are ways to actually track that, which is kind of interesting. Scrum product is released on a particular cadence, which is determined by the sprint length. So once the sprint ends, so if you start today and the sprint ends after 2 weeks, say on the Friday of after 2 weeks, when that sprint ends, you need to release a product. So that cadence has to be kept. All right. Whereas in Kanban, releases occur continuously or whenever there is a shippable product. So Kanban doesn't focus too much on time boxing everything and getting it done. It just focuses on, as soon as you're ready, let's release and ship something. If we're ready today, we're going to ship and release. If we're ready in 2 weeks, we're going to ship and release. But as soon as you're ready to ship, just ship something you can ship. All right. So a shippable product. So, and that's why with Kanban, once you go deep into the methodology, it talks more of velocity versus Scrum, which just focusing on, how much do you get done within your sprint and the sprint planning and such. All right, Kanban focuses, there's heavy focus on cross functionality. Teams have no specified roles. Everyone is a marketer, as an example. Whereas in Kanban, so that's Scrum, in Kanban, teams can specialize and pull tasks to their areas of expertise, but too much specialization will reduce the team's effectiveness. So let me summarize this. So this basically says in Kanban, the whole idea is for Kanban, you really don't want to specialize, right? Everybody can come in and pull tasks and get it done. So I might be a QA person, but if I can write code, you're more than welcome to come in and put hands on deck to write code. All right. For Scrum. So for Scrum, all hands on deck, right? I can have a QA person writing code if they could. So no one is really specialized. You can have a product owner, doing testing. And the whole idea is all hands on deck for us to deliver after 2 weeks within this by the end of the sprint. Whereas for Kanban, there is some specialization, and the whole idea is you're more effective if you specialize. So just specialize in what you do and get it done. It doesn't mean people cannot pull stuff, but the whole focus is on specialization. All right, and then Scrum, sprint kickoffs, daily stand-ups, sprint reviews, retrospectives are vital. So this is almost like a ritual, right? With I remember doing Scrum. There's always a daily stand-up. You come in every morning, you do your daily stand-up, and the whole idea is you want to stand up because people shouldn't sit down and be too comfortable. Stand up. What are you doing? What are the roadblocks you're facing? What do you need? What have you achieved, and things like that. All right. And the whole idea, if you have roadblocks, and then the Scrum Master can go remove those roadblocks for you. That's the task of the Scrum Master. And you do this every single day without missing a single beat. You have to do that every single day. And at the end, there is a retrospective where you do your demo. You're demoing to the stakeholders, and you're getting feedback, and you're talking about successes, and then doing sprint planning for the next sprint. So there's a lot of rituals when it comes to Scrum. I even had situations where during the sprint daily stand-up, every day during that 2 weeks, we'll have a stick, right, where you cannot talk until somebody gives you that stick. And so you take the stick or something, we just had something that you hold on your hand, and then you say what you're doing, what you or issues you're facing, what you've completed, what you're going to be working on, who you're going to need to support you, whatever it is you just need that day. Very short, say that, and you pass it to the next person. But Kanban doesn't really focus so much on the rituals. It's really focused on just build, make progress every single day. Come in, make progress. As soon as you're ready to ship something, it doesn't have to be the entire thing, just an MVP. Ship it, get feedback, and continue. So those are really the differences. All right. So I hope this gives us some idea of what Agile development is. So Agile is a development methodology that brings the business and it brings together your development team. So business and development teams are working together in 2-week cycles typically, and they can either be doing Scrum or they can do Kanban. Now, what then is DevOps? Since this video is talking about, we're talking about here Agile versus DevOps. I kind of think it's a little bit of a misnomer to put it that way, but let's just hang on with that for a second and continue. So DevOps is it's a short form for development plus operation. So it's really bringing together development and operation. But to be honest, DevOps and Agile are really two different things that work together. All right. So it's not like we're comparing the same thing here to see which is which, right? It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's not really a fair comparison, right? And DevOps, the goals for DevOps are still the same, similar to what Agile is, right? The goal is faster solutions, let's improve performance, increase efficiency, continuous improvement, faster ROI, all right? Build products that do not fail, so reduce failures. And the main players for DevOps are the development teams and the technology. All right, so you have your developers. They maybe want to build a website, they want to implement a CRM, or they're working on an ERP solution. How do they go about doing it? So traditionally, the whole idea is to do this big bang approach of just building this massive thing in development until it's ready. After 6 months or after a year, you bring it to production. All right, with DevOps, the approach is no, let's not do that. The whole idea is focus on automation, do things in short cycles, very similar to Agile, where you plan, you code, you build, you test it, and then you release it to production. If it's successful, you deploy, you operate, you monitor, and you iterate as quickly as possible in very short cycles. And the emphasis here, even though this is really talking about developers and the technologies, there is no business here. This is the main focus is on developers and how they build products. So the main focus here is on automation. We saw in Agile, the main focus was on collaboration. But here, the main focus is how do developers use the technologies and the tools they have at their disposal to build products quickly in ways that reduces failure and human interaction. So if you really think about DevOps, the operation side of it is a developer, once they do the planning, they can write the code, click a button where all it does the build, it runs through the test cases in an automated fashion. It does a release, again, automated. It deploys it, it operates, monitors, and all of that kind of feeds back into the cycle. So a lot of automation focus on DevOps. Now, how does this come together with Agile? So we're talking about Agile versus DevOps, but in reality, it should be Agile plus DevOps. That's really what it should be. Agile plus DevOps in action. And so this is what we see here on the screen, where in Agile, we have the business again and the developers, they're working together, and their focus here is on collaboration. All right. And this is really human centric. This is really a human activity when you're thinking about Agile. It's really how does the development team of developers, QA, testers, Scrum masters, stakeholders, how does that team, a small team of people, maybe 7 to 10, you try to keep it very small. How did they come together and work together to, think about solutions and plan to build those solutions? So this is really what that collaboration part is. Now, once you have a product which you actually need to build and write code and work on technology, That's then the developers, because developers are the ones that are doing the build. Those are the folks that now are interacting with their technologies, using DevOps practices, sometimes continuous integration, or CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment, to build, to plan, code, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor in an automated fashion. So collaboration plus automation is really the holy grail. That's where Agile and DevOps come together in synergy to work. And so saying Agile versus DevOps, again, that's a misnomer. That's not a, I don't think that's a fair way to think about it. It's really, the team can be Agile and using DevOps best practices. All right. You can have a team doing DevOps, but not necessarily Agile. They could be doing waterfall, and then I don't even know if that's possible, but you can have it that way. So saying Agile versus DevOps, again, is a misnomer. And once you do Agile and DevOps, so the human activities plus the technologies and the automation, you still get the same benefits, right? Of faster solutions, improved performance, increased efficiency, reducing failures, because when you automate things, all right, you reduce failures. So think about running through test cases. You can have many years ago, QAs would have to sit down and actually run through every test case and click through the scenarios. But what if you can automate that? So each time you just commit your code into a repository, you can run through your battery of test cases, and in a consistent fashion without any human being in there. All right, so that really makes speed and automation is really the key part of DevOps, right? Teams can build, test, deploy in a day and push it to production. All right. I hear of companies that are using DevOps. They can push new code to production almost every hour if they wanted to. All right. Whereas, and this is not doing it every hour in a fashion that breaks things, right? This is, they are running through all their test cases, they are doing all the validations, and still can push code to production every hour. That's really something that if you had to manually do it, it's gonna be a tough proposition. So that said, here are some of the tools that you might encounter when doing Agile. Things like Jira for collaboration, of course, Slack, or Confluence for tickets and stories, and all of the things that goes with Agile. All right, Teams, Microsoft Teams, Git for version control. Some people might use Git to store their stories or whatever comes out of the sprint. All right, any artifacts that comes out of the sprint plannings and such. Whereas when we talk about DevOps, which is really focused again on the technologies and the automation side, this is where you start hearing of things like Git again, pushing code in there, CI, CD, Maven, Jenkins, Chef, Puppet, containers and such. All right, Docker, Dockerizing the applications, and so this is really more focused on the technology side. I don't think a lot of business folks would care too much about understanding the specifics of a Jenkins script or a Maven build, all right, or an Azure DevOps pipeline, or a Google code build, or an AWS code pipeline, something like that. So the business folks don't care too much about the technology side. That's really DevOps is really for the developers integrating. But there is still that iteration in there of short cycles, and all of this comes together to deliver amazing solutions for the business. All right, guys, so this brings us to the end of this video. I hope this was helpful. Again, this is one of those questions that you see it out there, Agile versus DevOps. It sounds eye-catching, but I hope breaking it down this way did help clarify. There are people who just focus on the Agile side and become Scrum masters and things like that. That's one way to go. But then you have development teams that are taking advantage of the newer cloud-based shorter cycle development ideas and methodologies into their practices, and that really brings us into the DevOps. But the whole idea is build solutions fast, build them that reduces failures, increase efficiency, increase performance, and just offer overall agility to businesses. All right, guys, thanks for watching. This has been Fro. I appreciate you joining me for this session and sticking to the end. If you like this, don't hesitate to go down and smash that like button. That really means a lot. It tells YouTube that this is a great video and that we can continue making more. If you find value out of this, make sure you share this with somebody else. They say sharing is caring, so other people might also get value out of it. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.